I analyzed over 6,500 sales calls to realize there were only 3 objections that really matter. And it's not,
I had to think about it.
I need to run this by my spouse.
It's too expensive.
watch this video to learn exactly what your prospects were thinking and why they're not saying yes to working with you. Yuri Elkaim here, CEO and founder of Healthpreneur, New York Times bestselling author. And for the past 20 years, I've been building 7- and 8-figure businesses in the online health space. And I've helped thousands of other health professionals and coaches do the same. And part of building a coaching business involves talking to prospects because conversions come from conversations. If you're selling a higher ticket service or a coaching program, $2,000 to $10,000, for instance, you're not going to have someone go to a checkout page on a website and drop you money. So you have to speak with prospects. The challenge, though, is building that skill. I don't even think of it as selling. It's really coaching, how to have a conversation with a prospect, especially when they may not know, like, or trust you that much yet. How do you get them to do what's best for them, which in this case might be working with you, so they say yes, even if there's hesitation and doubt and so forth. So a lot of what I personally spend my time helping our clients with is getting better at these conversations. Now, I've done thousands of these conversations myself. I've reviewed thousands for our team and our clients, and I'm going to share 3 very important findings with you here. Because most likely you have been taught, or you may have been searching around for answers around how to handle objections. What do you say when someone says it's too expensive? What do you say when they need to think about it? What do you say when whatever the excuse is? What I'm going to share with you here is going to help you understand that none of those actually matter. There's only 3 true objections that you have to identify and neutralize. The best part is the first 2 can be neutralized in the first 15 minutes of a conversation, and the third is neutralized even before you get to price. When you have these dialed in, you're going to have much less resistance at the end of the call, regardless of what you're selling and how much you're selling it for. Because I don't want you to think that just because you're charging $3,000 and someone says no, it's too expensive, that you're going to decrease your prices. It's not about that. It's about understanding how you help people see the value in what they want to do and working with you. So 3 words I want you to write down. Take out a pen and I want you to write these down right now. These are the 3 big umbrellas: desire, belief, trust. Okay, so write those down. We're going to dive into these. So the number 1 true core objection of why someone is not going to work with you is going to fall under that first label of desire, which stated otherwise means I don't truly want what I told you I want. So you're in a conversation. Why are we speaking now? They're like, oh my God, my life has to change. I can't keep doing this. They go on. You ask them probing questions to get into the pain and emotion and all that stuff. Okay. They're telling you why they want to change. Now, if this piece is not dialed in, what's going to happen later in the conversation is, so again, there can be a multitude of ways this goes, but one of the biggest ones is, it's a little bit out of my price range, my budget, it's too expensive, whatever. So the monetary objection is very closely related to this first core objection, which is I don't truly want what I say I want. The reason I say this is the biggest one is, here's the thing. You've probably heard the saying where there's, when it's a must, we find a way. When it's a nice to have, we find an excuse, right? Something like that. So think of it like this. I'm going to just use for the context of this video that you sell a coaching program that's going to help someone transform some aspect of their health, and it's $5,000. Okay? Person says, it's a lot of money. Okay, cool. Got it. If it was $5,000 for a house, do you think they'd find a way to pay for it? They would run to the bank that second. So we have to understand that price is always in the context of value. So when I talk about people don't want what they say they want, this is essentially not even about working with you. This is about, do they really want the outcome that they're talking about? Are they really okay with their current situation, or are they willing to go through the quote unquote perceived pain of change to make things better? Because the default setting for most humans is, I would rather stay in the known shit than go through the pain of the unknown. That's the human condition. So you have to understand we're working against that. So here's how you can sniff this out early in a conversation. And I love doing this after you talk about where someone wants to be. So you ask them like, hey, where would you want to be? How do you want your health to be, or the specific condition to be different or better in 6 to 12 months from now? So you're getting them to paint the vision of the future. And what this does is it stretches their own vision. And they get very attached to that. And that's ultimately why they booked this call with you, because they want to improve and move toward that. So they're going to say X, Y, or Z. You can certainly ask some clarifying questions and some questions that will get a little more to the emotion, like why it's important, what does that allow you to do that you can't do right now, stuff like that. When that's all said and done, here's what we're going to ask. So just to be fully transparent with you, if we were to work together, and if I could help you and you wanted my help, the investment's in the neighborhood of about $5,000. Now, with that said, and considering we'd get you closer to that vision you just talked about, does that seem like a smart investment? Or should I just point you towards a beginner or a free resource instead? Just think of what just happened here. You're not talking about your coaching program yet. All we're doing is saying you just talked about this dream that you said is really important to you. You have to change. You're going to die early. You're not going to be there for your kids, whatever. You're saying, okay, thank you for sharing that. Assuming we were to work together, if we even get there, I'm not saying that we're going to happen, but like, I just want to be fully transparent. It's this amount of money. In relation to the vision you just talked about, does this investment make sense to you? If they say, I would never spend that amount of money on this, conversation's over. Because what they've just told you is they don't value the vision they just talked about, i.e. what they said they want, as anything more meaningful than maybe a couple $100. So why I love using this early on in the call is it's not about, you could like, when you talk about price, you always have to drop it in context of value or some type of comparison. If you just said, well, listen, before we get started, it's $5,000 to work together. Anyways, so why are we talking today? Like, you can't do that because there's no context, there's no contrast, there's no relativity, right? But if you say, listen, you just talked about this dream, how it's going to allow you to be there with your kids, you're going to be able to finish your favorite clothing, you're going to love who you see in the mirror. Assuming we could get you there, does a $5,000 investment sound like a smart move, or should we just call it a day? Because now they're going to tell you, yes, it sounds like a smart move, but like, tell me more about how this would work. Awesome. All we're looking for is someone who is saying, I think so, yeah, but I'm not sure what this would all look like. That's fine. All we're trying to get to is we're looking for someone who is like, I am willing to change, I am willing to get better, and I'm willing to spend this amount of money. And this is in the first 10 to 15 minutes of the call. If you get people after an hour and a half at the end of the call and they're like, oh, it's too expensive, they don't give a shit about the transformation, potentially as the core issue. Said otherwise. So let's say, as an example, we're not going to spend a lot of time early in the conversation dealing with objections, okay? Do not do that. But let's say that the person is like, no, like that's way out of my budget. Like, oh, okay, cool. So totally fair, totally understand that. Just out of curiosity, do you have kids? Yes. Let's say, hypothetically, and I hope this never happens, but let's say your kids were kidnapped and you had to pay $5,000 to get them back. Does that seem like a smart move? Like, could you come up with $5,000 or would you just let them, be taken forever? Anyone's going to say, oh, of course I would get the $5,000. Got it. But you wouldn't do it for yourself? All of a sudden, now we're looking at, is this person looking at things through the right lens? They would find every single human who has kids, for sure, would find the $5,000 to get their kids back. But the fact that they're not willing to do it for themselves is a big issue. Okay? So that's why I do not believe price is ever the objection. It is not, because we always spend our money and our time on things that we value most. Period, full stop. They don't spend the money with you. Guess what? Like, they're going to spend the money. Do you think someone is not going to spend $5,000 for the rest of their life? Of course they will. They're going to buy a car. They're going to buy a phone. They're going to buy a new TV. They're going to spend the money on food, on a vacation. The money is going to leave their bank account 100% guaranteed. The question is, do they see themselves as a priority in which they're willing to invest? So the first core objection, it's not about it's too expensive. It's desire. Desire trumps everything. Because if you have a burning desire, you will always find a way to make it work. Like, look at the example I just gave you, right? Someone's kids are kidnapped. The desire to get them back is through the roof. It's not even a question. That is the utmost desire. Well, I want to lose weight, yeah, but do I have to work out and change the way I'm eating? different story, right? Different fuel, different energy around that desire, which is why people are not going to invest where they're not fully committed. So this question early on sniffs that out. So all we're looking for is someone who is open to the possibility of like, yeah, like I think so. Like that kind of makes sense, but I don't even know what you offer. Totally cool. We'll have the rest of the conversation to get to that point, okay? So the first core objection that you have to understand of why people are not going to say yes to working with you is because they don't actually want what they say they want. And honestly, in my 20 years of doing this, most people talk so much shit and they don't back it up. And this is how we start to sniff that out. So that's number one. The second big core objection comes down to belief. So we talk about desire first, belief is second. So belief is, I don't believe I, the prospect, I can get better. I don't believe I can make this work. So once again, we sniff this out early in the conversation. So we're not even talking about, like, we're not even at price yet. We're not even in the third part of, like, the latter third of the call. This is in discovery. So why are we talking now? Where do you want to go? What are some of the challenges that you've come up with? Why don't you think you've been able to figure this out on your own? I've tried X, Y, and Z and nothing's worked. I'm sorry to hear that. What do you think was missing? Do you think it was like the wrong method or there's a lack of support or, like, talk to me about that. So they start telling you about all this stuff, right? The stuff that hasn't worked, the stuff they tried, what they liked, what they didn't like. So here's the thing, okay? You have to challenge their own internal belief about whether or not they can get better, especially like with a health condition. Think about it just logically. Someone's had, let's just say, type 2 diabetes for 20 years. They've been on all the drugs, they've done some stuff, and they still have diabetes 20 years later. What do you think the real objection is going to be about this person in potentially working with you? They've had 20 years of failure. Do you really think automatically they're going to be like, oh, totally, I can crush this? No, right? And so what's going to happen is people's own insecurity and their lack of belief in themselves will be projected onto you with things like, is there a guarantee? How do I know this is going to work? I need to see proof from other people. No. Like, I literally just got this DM yesterday. Well, Yuri, because you don't have testimonials specific to people like me in my part of the world, it doesn't make sense for us to invest to work with you. And I said, great. It sounds like we're never going to work together if you don't feel you can make this work for you. Do you think with the thousands of clients I've worked with and helped that you're some kind of outlier that this is not going to work for? Oh, I'm sorry that we don't have a testimonial of someone who has long brown hair and 2 kids instead of 3 in your specific part of the world. No, that screams to me, you don't believe you can make it work. I don't need to roll over and play circus acts to try to convince you that this is going to work for you. That's never going to happen if you're working with me. And it should never happen if you have clients work with you. You're the expert. They're not. If they were, they wouldn't have the problem. So never, ever put yourself in a position where you are blowing smoke up people's ass and trying to convince them that this can work for them. Because the saying, you've probably heard the famous saying, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. So how we get people to kind of overcome this objection of like, I don't believe I can get better, even though they might verbally not say it to you, is we just ask them a couple questions in discovery. Mr. Prospect, I understand everything you've gone through and it hasn't quite worked out. And I appreciate you sharing that with me. But what makes you think all of a sudden things can be better or different for you now? Okay, that's one example. What they say to that is I think I can change things and we'll see, right? Option number 2, you worked with a lot of different people and tried a lot of different approaches. Why do you think you can get better results with me? Okay, so now they're going to sell themselves on you a little bit more, but also they might touch on their own ability to commit differently. Here's another option. If nothing else has worked for you, why do you believe all of a sudden things can work this time, right? That's the third option. 4, hey, if I'm being really frank with you and I'm being honest with you, what you're looking to do is hard work. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to require some change. Are you really committed to making that happen? Yes, I am. Cool. Tell me more. So these are 4 examples of questions that are going to gently push the ownership onto the client, potential client, to get them to tell you and themselves in the process why they believe they can make things better, right? And like the key, what I love about this, guys, it's not about selling. This is, I mean, if you see my stuff around unselling, this is more about what it's about. It's not about pushing people away. It's simply about saying like, listen, like, I want to make sure that you understand that this requires a bit of effort and work on your part. I also want to make sure that you believe you can do the work and make it happen, because apparently nothing else has worked. So why all of a sudden do you think that this can work for you? Because if you don't address this, it shows up later in the call where they're projecting their own insecurities on your expertise. Hey, we'll get back to the video in just a moment, but if you're enjoying this content, hit that subscribe button below. It will help me sleep a lot better at night. But more importantly for you, it'll help you build your dream a lot faster. So go ahead, subscribe, and we'll get back to the show. Here's something I tell my clients. When they challenge your credibility, you challenge their commitment. And when I say they challenge your credibility, what I'm saying is an example I just gave you, right? Like, you don't have testimonials of specific people just like me in my specific part of the world. I'm like, are you for real? Like, they're challenging my credibility, which is fine. But all that screams to me is I don't believe in myself enough to make this work. Period, full stop. There are two questions I have never asked ever when working with when we're working with a coach, whether it's business or personal. Number one, do you offer a money-back guarantee? Come on, man. Like, seriously, if I have to do the work, I understand that. I'm not looking for a money-back guarantee. Two, I want to speak to some of your other clients to see what types of results they got. I'm like, I don't give a shit what they got. I don't want to compare myself to other people, whether they're, mediocre or further ahead of me. I don't care. Their stuff is irrelevant to how I show up in my results, because I know I will make it work because I believe in myself. I will always bet on myself. And if you're talking to people who are not willing to bet on themselves, it's not about you, it's about them. This second core objection is the biggest one of the three, potentially. Because if someone does not believe in themselves, they will never bet on themselves. What if this doesn't work out? Says a loser who's lost many times in life before. They're referencing failure after failure after failure in their life. The difference with winners is winners simply reference wins and successes in their life. People who have confidence because their reference points in the past are those of success. So they say to themselves, well, I've done well before. Naturally, I'm going to figure this out. Whereas people who don't succeed in the past, or maybe they have, but not as much as maybe they want, their focus is on all the failures. And they're saying to themselves, I've failed in this and this and this, and this system's let me down, this and this and this. Why is this going to be any different? How am I going to show it? Can I really get better? So you have to be able to have this conversation with your prospects. And it's about being very honest with them, right? Like, if you have someone type 2 diabetes and they've had it for 20 years, to be like, yo, like, I just want to be super transparent with you. You've had this for 20 years. I mean, the good news is that diabetes is reversible through lifestyle alone. But like, I got to be honest with you. Like, I'm not looking to take on people who are not going to do the work, because my reputation's on the line. I don't stay in business if my clients don't get results. Unlike the medical system, you go to the doctor, they don't care if you get results. They get a paycheck. I only get a paycheck if my clients win. That's the beautiful part about free enterprise and business. Now, I don't need to go, too deep into that. But, before we go any further, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, because I need to know from you that you can follow the plan, that when things get tough, and I guarantee that they will, that you lean in for support instead of disappearing. And then you just keep going when the going gets tough. Can you do those three things? Person's like, yeah, great. Then why do you believe that you'd be the only outlier this wouldn't work for? And so you're getting them to sell you on why they can work and why they can make it work. Because then at the end of the call, when you get into price and what all the bullshit that comes up, I need to think about it, too much money. It's like, really? Earlier you said all this stuff. So number one is cognitive dissonance. They're not going to say stuff that's going to be contrary to stuff they talked about earlier. And if they do, you just bring it up. So it makes the end of the conversation so much easier. So that's the second core objection, which is belief. Ultimately, it's self-belief. Do they really believe they can change? The third core objection is going to be a little bit later in the call. So the first two, if you think about it, are about the prospect. This third one is more about you as the provider. So the third core objection comes down to trust. Basically, it's more or less this, is I don't believe you can help me get what I want. So yes, I 100% really, really, really want what I say I want. So I have that desire. 2, no, for sure. Like I have confidence in myself. I have the belief. 3rd is, well, how do I know you and your solution are going to help me get where I want to go? Okay. So here, this is very important because the better your marketing is, the less you're going to deal with this. And what I mean by that is if you have people coming in organically who've been following you for years and who are drinking your Kool-Aid and have seen all your social proof and have consumed all your content, this 3rd objection doesn't happen because they're already fully bought in. Versus if you're running ads and you get people booking calls with you who don't even know you exist until like an hour ago, this 3rd objection is likely going to come up. So how do we prevent this? Number 1, in your marketing sequence, in your pre-call sequence, whether you have a webinar, pre-call booking page, prep page before the call, you have to pollute it positively with social proof. You have to let people have to come into this call knowing that you are the real deal. They have to feel like you know how to get results for that specific situation. So that's before the call. Second thing on the call, please, for the love of everything that is holy, do not show up on Zoom with some kind of blurred out fake background or like your head is on the bottom of the screen like this. It screams unprofessional. People make a snap judgment of you in a second. So when you're setting up your background, I mean, just like look at this background, right? Just, it doesn't have to be fancy, just super clean, right? I got some degrees on the wall, whatever. Put a bookshelf behind you, just set it up so that it looks like you're a friggin' pro. If you're a doctor, like use the degree. We have clients that have like 15 plaques on the wall of their degrees, right? Put that on the wall, or at the very minimum, just keep it very clean and simple. Because if you're doing these calls in your bedroom with the closet open, your clothes hanging, you are toast. You have to think about the first impressions really, really matter. People are talking to you. They have to know that they're talking to an expert. We've had some clients who are doctors and all they did was put on a white lab coat. That's it. So they have the call. They just start the call with a white lab coat on. And because of that association of white lab coat to doctor, i.e. I trust doctor, naturally the rest of the conversation becomes a lot easier. But if you don't look the part, naturally people are going to be thinking like, do I even want to can I trust this person? So it's really, really important to make sure you look the part. So that's all before the call's even started. I mean, the background obviously is during the call. So end of the call, you're talking about your program, you're talking about the solution, keep it very minimal, okay? Talk about the outcomes, the destination, less about the process, but give them enough clarity so they kind of know what they're getting into. In that process, it is very important to have a back and forth dialogue. So you're not giving a monologue for 20 minutes about your solution. That is the biggest mistake I see people make. The challenge is that you're so close to your own value that sometimes it's hard to articulate in a way that we feel that we have to give all these details. But the reality is most people don't give a shit about the worksheet on the 3rd module of week 3. Who cares, right? I'm going to have you're going to go through a bunch of videos and some homework. And it's like, no. Just keep it clean. Okay. Talk about high level outcomes, the major pillars you're going to you're going to help them cover, and make sure you're relating what you do in the program back to what they said they want earlier on. So remember when you talked about this really big frustration of having no support from your medical doctor? What a joke, right? How we do things differently here is you'll have, 1, 2, 3 coaching calls a week, Or you can also say like, hey, just out of curiosity, when you're talking about working with this practitioner before, how many calls did you have with them on a weekly basis? And the prospect will probably laugh. Sorry, calls? I had no calls. Really? They didn't nothing? So you just showed up at the office and then disappeared and hope for the best? Yeah. Okay, well, we do things here a little bit differently. So here, instead of just leaving you, to figure things out on your own, we actually connect twice a week. And, that way you have more one-on-one feedback and so forth. So you can position your prescription, your solution as a much better alternative compared to stuff they've done before. So even though the solution you're offering is the same to everyone in most cases, how you talk about it needs to be very personalized based on what they gave you earlier on in the conversation. Okay, so if it was a lack of support, you talk about the support you offer. If the methodology was brutal, you talk about how your methodology is better. So if someone comes into work with us and we're like, oh my God, I worked with this coach, she had no clue what she was doing. She talked about we had to do launches and shit. I'm like, oh my God, So earlier you talked about you never want to do launches again. I feel completely the same way. And that's why we don't do any of that stuff here, right? Like launches are exhausting. They're stressful. They're not like whatever. So we do the complete opposite. It's not a launch. It's an evergreen daily flow of leads, calls about clients coming into your business. That way you don't have stressful launches. You have a business that's more optimized, works more systemized and automated on your behalf. Ah, cool. Awesome. So now I'm talking about the same core offer, but I'm just positioning it in a way that's more contextual based on the frustrations they talked about earlier. So let's come back to this third core objection. I don't believe you or your solution can help me. So in order for us to overcome that, we have to get a sense of how this person's feeling as we're talking about the prescription, the solution. So Mr. Prospects, how do you feel that specific part of this program would help you? So now what I just did is I asked the question around a particular part of the program or the process. And now instead of just going on a monologue, I'm stopping, I'm checking in. And now the prospect is telling me and themselves why they like this thing. It could be the support. It could be like whatever aspect of it is. Oh, cool. So they're going to talk about like this, and this, and this. And if they don't give you a lot of material, just be like, so if let's say you ask a question like, do you feel that would be helpful for you? And they say yes. Instead of going on, just be like, oh, that's awesome. How so specifically? And you ask them to elaborate. And now they'll tell you and themselves why this particular part of your solution is going to help them. So we continue kind of following in that vein through the prescription. So of everything I've shown you, of everything we've talked about, what do you feel would be the most useful and helpful for you to get toward where you want to go? And they're going to say this. Great. Why that one specifically? Let them elaborate. Okay. So see what I'm doing here is I'm showing them something and then I'm asking them why they feel that would be helpful or what they would feel helpful and asking them to elaborate. So we get toward the end of prescription. We get close to, let's talk about the investment. Okay. Now we've already dropped the price earlier on in relation to what they want. But before we get into the actual dollars and cents here, it's really important to do one final kind of check-in or tie-down, whatever you want to call it. So I like to ask the question, so based on everything that we've talked about, do you feel that this is 100% what you need to help you achieve insert whatever the outcome was? And they're going to say one of two things. They're going to say, absolutely, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And then you always will follow up with, well, how so? Something like that where they can now clarify and expand on that, as opposed to just moving on to the next question. Or it's a wishy-washy answer. So they're going to say, yeah, I think so. I mean, if they give you that kind of response, or like, yeah, like the intonation is like, it's like the BS radar is going off. So a couple things. One, I'm picking up a little bit of hesitation or a little bit of doubt. What's keeping you from being less than 100% certain that this is exactly what you need? We're trying to get to the core of the issue before we even talk about the investment. Because if they're not sold on the process, they're never going to be sold on the price. So don't talk about price until you have a firm, this is exactly what I've been looking for. The price is irrelevant. I know boom, okay? So those are kind of one or two questions I like to use just before the investment, and then we can get into the price. Okay, because at that point, you've already talked about the price quickly. You get to the price, cool. So the only thing we haven't talked about is timing your price. The good news, we can get you started right away. So you don't have to wait and continue suffering with this. Investment's really simple. It's $5,000. If you wanted to pay up front today, it's $4,500. Or you could do 3 installments of whatever it is, $2,000, whatever the price is. Which one of those feels best for you today? And they're going to say, well, that one. Great. Visa, MasterCard, Amex. Let's get you started. Okay, close the deal. Or they're going to come up with some type of stall. Yeah, I need to think about it. It's like you've already addressed most of the stuff. Okay, so I'm not going to get into the specific objections post-investment conversation on the close, but I want you to understand that if you're dealing with, it's too expensive, talk to my spouse, I need to think about it, you've already dealt with the main core, the 3 core objections. I don't really want what I say I want. You should have tackled that early on. 2, I don't believe I can get better. So why should I even bother? 3rd is I don't believe in you. Okay? If those come to the surface, you close the deal. If they come to the surface and you still don't close the deal, it's because they're fearful, they're afraid, they're nervous. You have to have that conversation in the close. Because if you don't, they're going to come up with stories like, yeah, it's just not my process. I don't make decisions on the spot. It's like you're going to deal with that stuff instead of getting to the truth. So the beautiful thing about these 3 core objections is that they get to the truth of why people don't move forward. Okay, and if you think of why people don't move forward, it's due to fear. Fear basically means I don't believe I'm going to be okay in the future. And that's a movie I'm making up in my mind. Why would I not be okay in the future? Because I'm not going to succeed because I don't believe in myself because I failed in the past. So that's the second core belief, right? I don't believe I can do this. Or I don't believe I'm going to be okay, which is, what if I lose my money? What if you scam me? Like all of that, like all of like the third one, like I don't trust your solution or whatever. What if this is more like what if this is like the stuff I've done before? All of that stuff has to be addressed early in the call. Because if it is, you get to the price and it's like, great, which option works best for you? And then the volume of objections you're going to have to deal with in the close is going to be close to nothing. And if they do come up, then at least you can bring back like what they talked about earlier, right? So you can use that as reference or leverage at that point in the call. So listen, if you like this kind of stuff, let me know in the comments. Like 100% of my coaching time with my clients is in conversations like this. Because if you get good at having quote unquote sales conversations, we actually call this coach to close because it's coaching, right? Whether you're selling something or coaching, it's the same thing. You're always selling. The difference between coaching is what happens after they've paid you. But how we run a lot of these conversations is you actually get to coach people before they pay you. So it's not about being salesy, it's about helping someone do what's best for them. And a lot of times that means moving through fear. And it's not about pushing someone through that. That's actually the opposite of what I'm trying to get at in this video. It's you're not pushing anyone, you're actually pushing them away and you're getting them to pull themselves back in. Because when they pull themselves back in, then they're fully committed to the process. You don't get people the next day with buyer's remorse and asking for refunds because they've sold themselves on why they can do this and why you're the best solution. So if you've enjoyed this is just one piece of the puzzle. Obviously, if you want to get more leads and more calls booked in the first place, you probably want a better system and ecosystem in your business to make that happen. The next video I'd recommend you watch is our $1 Million Health Coaching Roadmap, which will show you our whole business model and how we help our clients every single day do just that so they can help more people like clockwork and deal with a lot less of the unpredictability that can come growing a business. So check that out next. I'll see you there.